Welcome, everybody, to Lore Friday. My name is D&D Galabond, and today we are going to be looking at Chapter 8 from Out of the Abyss. This chapter is called Audience in Gauntlgrym. In this particular chapter, we introduce a new story arc, a new patron or ally of the party, and or a new home base the party might use between their adventures. And this adds a lot of new elements that we can look at, not only with respect to the current campaign, but with respect to things you can do in your own home game as well. So the setup for this chapter, after escaping the Underdark in Chapter 7, word finally reaches a legendary dwarf leader about the PCs and their adventures in the Underdark. That dwarf is none other than Bruenor Battlehammer, a hero of the R.A. Salvatore Icewind Dale novel series who has been canonized in official D&D adventures since at least 2nd edition. He's also been featured in many subsequent novels by Salvatore, along with his faithful human, halfling, and dark elf companions. Now, Bruenor now rules as the king in Gauntlgrym, and he wants the PCs to come tell him about their experiences and their discoveries in the Underdark. So at least 3 months have passed since the PCs have escaped the Underdark. So that's enough time for word to get to Bruenor for him to locate the PCs and then finally to get a message summoning them to Gauntlgrym for an audience in his throne room. PCs would be thrilled to meet him. So if the initial summons goes unanswered, the DM is told only that the summons would become more urgent, and you're allowed to put in some NPCs that could basically hint to the party, hey, this Bruenor is a pretty big deal. He's a king. If you ignore the summons of a king, that would probably be pretty rude. So it's implied that most people who are fans of the Forgotten Realms and D&D would go, "Oh my gosh, we get to meet Bruenor." But, you have players that may not be familiar with the novels or maybe brand new to D&D. The name Bruenor doesn't mean anything to them. So you can put in there some hints that, this guy's a pretty powerful king and he's done a lot of heroic things back when he was an adventurer. So maybe you ought to go and answer his summons. So one idea would be to have an arrest warrant for the PCs, who would be hauled to Gauntlgrym and forced under interrogation to tell what they know, and then sentenced to go do what the king wants them to do in the first place. Now, that's a little bit heavy-handed, and that also may imply for your players, or may be an opportunity for your players to sort of rebel against the plan um, of the campaign. Now, if you guys are already running as a group of sort of scofflaws and outlaws who may have been conscripted in the first place by the authorities to go do this, then that may fit right in well with the pattern of how your campaign has gone in the first place. But if they are heroic PCs, that would be a bit heavy handed. So I might say if they're heroic PCs, then Bruenor should be pitched as somebody who can be very beneficial as an ally and perhaps as a patron, and try to set it up so it's somebody that the party wants to help, especially if they're pretty good aligned. If the party is all neutral or evil aligned, then, hey, do whatever you want. It's your game after all. And the most important thing is that you and your players are all having fun with this. So there's no maps of Gauntlgrym provided in the campaign, and there's only thumbnail sketch descriptions given of several different individual parts of the city. So there's no particularly planned adventures here. Gauntlgrym could serve as a wonderful home base for the PCs, where a powerful patron sits on the throne and where enough skilled craftsmen, mages, and clerics exist in order to fashion the kind of gear upgrades that the PCs may be looking to have made for them at this time or in a few levels. Fortunately, Gauntlgrym is easy to find in your favorite search engine. You can locate dozens of different versions of city maps and detailed listings of streets, shops, districts in case you want to make this a hub location for the next few chapters of the campaign. And that way, you can create your own sort of customized version of Gauntlgrym and have that be a place that the adventurers come back to, and maybe they build that out through what the kinds of things they want to do. Oh, you need a magic shop. Okay, so I'm going to build a magic shop over here on this street. Oh, we need an arms merchant, so I will put somebody that deals with arms over here. Those types of things. Included in this chapter are descriptions of the contacts from the various factions across the Sword Coast and their objectives. And this will help these different faction leaders understand the threat of the demon lords in the Underdark. These factions are something that are seemingly created by Wizards of the Coast to support the organized play of D&D throughout the Adventurers League. I believe these were originally created in 4th edition, and they have migrated into most of the campaigns for 5th edition, at least those that are set in the Forgotten Realms. Now, these different factions are far reaching guilds or syndicates that have a philosophy of operation and give benefits to the characters that undertake missions, perform tasks, gather intelligence, or recover valuable treasures for the faction that they may be aligned with. If you've been watching this far, thank you. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and click the post notification bell so that you can be notified every time new content goes live. Let's get to the primary purpose of this chapter. uh, Meeting Bruenor Battlehammer. Now, what are Bruenor's angles and objectives? First of all, Bruenor wants a credible report for all of the faction representatives of the threat that is posed by the demon lords loose in the Underdark. He furthermore wants a reliable and proven team to go do something about that threat. So, since the PCs have survived the first half of the campaign in the Underdark, they get Bruenor's vote as just the sort of hardy adventurers who can go deal with the rest of the threat. He believes the faction representatives may have some tools and resources to make that job easier. Now, later we'll discuss a few of the things you can deduce or use from Bruenor's appearance in this chapter to inspire your own ideas about your PCs gaining a patron after they have gained a few levels. But first, let's look at what the angles and objectives of each of these faction representatives are. First of all, the Harpers are represented by a noble from Waterdeep. All the PCs need to do to get his help is to charm and engage him. Now, if the PCs gain his favor and one of them can beat him in a game of chess, he will loan them the use of a shield guardian and its control amulet. That can be a very useful tool. It's an extra tank basically for the party when they are going on their next series of adventures. And from the Order of the Gauntlet, they are represented by a lawful good fighter who has attained the political rank of a knight. Now, if a good aligned heroes curry favor with him, he can offer the aid of 5 retainers and the use of a magic warhammer. Or it suggests you can replace that warhammer with any other type of weapon that maybe is appropriate for a member of the party. The Emerald Enclave is represented by a ranger-like scout of the Underdark who lives in the city of Gauntlgrym, or calls Gauntlgrym their home base, if you will. The PCs gain her favor. She pledges 3 scouts in her organization and giant lizard mounts for everyone to make travel faster and easier. And she also wants the PCs to go and find a scout that she's lost contact with and see if they can escort that scout safely back to Gauntlgrym. Now, the Lord's Alliance is represented by a noble from Waterdeep. The PCs gain favor with him. He offers them several guards and spies. He also tells them about a deep cover agent of the faction. This agent is a high elf living among the drow in one of their cities, and she's using magic to hide her true appearance from the natives. If the PCs go to this city and if they can find her, she may have some valuable insights that will help the party, but also, of course, the noble wants them to bring the intelligence back to him to benefit the Lord's Alliance. And then finally, we have the Zhentarim. The Zhentarim are represented by a lady assassin. if the PCs agree to give her a cut of any treasure they find, she will give them directions and the proper credentials to locate a secret trading post that the Zhentarim have established and that they have used for decades in the Underdark. And that trading post has been a way that has helped them to smuggle goods and obtain rare commodities for sale on both legal and black markets, going both ways. Things that are resources that are normally found in the Underdark that they can bring out and sell on the surface, and rare items from the surface that they can take and sell on legal and black markets within the Underdark. Now, she can also supply some muscle to go with the group as well. And then the adventure presents some potential troubles within Gauntlgrym. It provides some suggested trouble that can happen while the PCs are there in the city. If they want to make this a hub for the next part of the campaign, you can sprinkle these troubles throughout later visits, or if the PCs seem to be content and just sitting around and exploring the city, and you sort of want to get them moving on with the plot, you can use one or more of these events or a different event of your own choosing to sort of spur the party to action. Now, some of the options that they give us are an NPC that has been traveling with the party goes mad, and in that madness is revealed to be an agent of one of the demon lords. Okay, so that means, oh, the threat is coming right here. You guys better go do something about it. Now, there also might be a drow spy or assassin that has been trailing the party. They slip into the city intending to gather intelligence or to attack one or more of the PCs in the party, maybe get them alone in their room and attack them while they're sleeping at night. There could also be a demon cult assassin that slips into the city and attempts to assassinate one of the faction representatives. And to complicate matters, this assassin fabricates or steals and then later plants evidence that implicates one or more of the PCs as the actual assassin. That could then get the party in trouble with their host, King Bruenor, as well as the representatives from one or more of the other factions. Another item that they throw in there as a possibility is a doppelganger who's posing as one of the faction representatives. Now, it doesn't actually represent the faction it claims to. Instead, it's representing a faction from the Underdark. And its purpose for being in Gauntlgrym is to gather intelligence on King Bruenor and on the PCs that furthers some plot thread or some plan of the faction that they actually serve. And then another thing that they throw in as an option is the primordial Maegra. Now, Maegra is that huge fire primordial that is imprisoned in the Great Forge of Gauntlgrym. And in this particular event, it stirs in its prison or in its sleep, and it roars. And that very act of roaring spawns three fire elementals that cause havoc in the streets and markets of the city. Now, doesn't necessarily say it, but in your version of the game, maybe that was provoked by one of the demon lords, and maybe there's evidence to that fact, and so that could again spur the party. Hey, if you just keep hanging around, this threat from the demon lords is just going to grow greater and greater, and it's eventually going to get here. So either go deal with it now or wait around and the threat's going to come to you. So those are different things that you can do. So let's go back and let's talk about how we can repurpose Bruenor as a patron for the party. There's two different ways we can look at that. We can look at Bruenor as a template for a heroic patron. We can also look at him as a template for a non-heroic patron. And here's a couple of different things that we think about. So if you're leveraging Bruenor as a famous character known to your players from other media, such as novels, movies, TV, or even the lore of your own campaign world, there's a few things you might want to do with that. So, number one, they are summoned by a famous patron. So, the fame and renown of the adventurers has grown as they advance in level. This chapter is designed for Tier 2, Level 8. So by that time in the career of most adventuring parties, at least some of the deeds of these heroes should have taken on legendary status, and they're very likely to have been sung in the courts of kings or emperors within several hundred miles of where the party operates. So even if the party remains anonymous, the deeds or the effects of those deeds will be widely known. So it's not unrealistic that a king might think the adventurers could solve problems on a national level. So having a legendary ruler like Bruenor summon them for an audience is not unreasonable at this point in time. Now, powerful patrons also employ spies. So if your party is being contacted by a potential patron they don't know, you have the option to feed them some character knowledge if you want to. You're perfectly within your rights as a DM to let them get paranoid and second guess how the message or messenger even found them. So let's say that your party is operating as an anonymous group, and suddenly in some tavern they get some shady character that comes to them, kind of like Aragorn introduced himself to Frodo in Lord of the Rings. And Frodo had no idea who this guy is, but, later finds out, oh, he's a friend of Gandalf. And because he knew Gandalf, he knew that Frodo would be traveling as Mr. Underhill. So your powerful patron, somebody who's a king, who is a powerful noble, who is an emperor, they're going to have spies. So no matter how careful your party is, somebody's going to know something about them, and spies will have found ways of getting that information, and they will be able to approach the party clandestinely. And then it's up to you whether you want to give them insights in player knowledge that, oh yeah, a king would normally have spies and whatnot, or whether you just want to let them be absolutely paranoid. How did these people find us? Oh my God, are do we have a leak somewhere? And they can maybe get a little paranoid. That all kind of depends on the tone that you like to have in your games and that your players enjoy within the game as well. So you can have fun with that any way that you want. Now, game also recognizes game. So, depending on the world in which you're adventuring, having a legendary NPC offer to be the party's patron shows just how heroic the party has become themselves. Bruenor summoning the party would be like adventurers in Middle-earth being summoned to Gondor by Aragorn after he and Queen Arwen have had a few kids, and the events of Lord of the Rings have long happened. But now there's this legendary king who was involved in this big battle to defeat Sauron and destroy the ring, and now he is reaching out to the party and summoning them. Okay, if you're being summoned by Aragorn after he's on the throne of Gondor, then yeah, you must be a pretty big deal. Also, it would be the same as in the world of Westeros. If King Robert were to summon adventurers to Westeros in King's Landing 10 years before the death of Jon Arryn. And if it's a homebrew world, you know which political rulers are known far and wide, ones that with colorful pasts and great deeds to their name. So one of those might be one to summon your PCs if you want to give them a similar sort of legendary patron. Now, even if you don't want the patron themselves to be legendary, but just have them be a powerful and wealthy patron who's maybe the head of a kingdom or a very powerful noble or something like that, there are some benefits that you can deduce from this particular chapter and use in your own campaign. Number one is just the ability for your PCs to live large. Your PCs have the option to become pampered as long as they observe the appropriate etiquette. They might be given private rooms or a suite within the keep of the monarch, or have use of one of the noble's estate homes, along with staff tossed in as a bonus. Depending on what sort of relationship the patron wants with the PCs, your players may find themselves outfitted with new gear, fancy clothes for court functions, or they may just be paid very, very well to undertake missions that are of importance to their new patron and to their realm. Also, you gain access to services and favorable prices. And this one can cut both ways. If the ruler or monarch is beloved by the people of the kingdom or city, once they learn that the PCs are friends and guests of the said monarch, the merchants may treat them with more respect and quicker service, perhaps even with some discounts. And they also may find favor with the common folk in taverns and public houses. But if the monarch is not beloved by the people, then you may see more resistance to interacting with merchants and the common folk and whatnot. You might even see that when the PCs go into public houses and taverns, the maybe somebody who has a tendency to get a little deep in their cups, they might go making rude comments about the PCs, and there's an opportunity for a tavern brawl or something like that. So that's a thing that you can look at in terms of how you might use a patron in your campaign. Let's take a look at the different factions and ways that you can repurpose those factions. So if your game doesn't take place in the Forgotten Realms, you probably won't be using these official D&D 5e factions that are sprinkled throughout their published campaigns. But these factions are a good reminder that in any game world, your kings, your nobles, your gods, and your large organizations all have their own plans and priorities that are happening at the same time as the plot that the PCs are following. Sometimes those plans and priorities will intersect, sometimes they will conflict. And this gives you opportunities to introduce chances for the players to gain benefits, make friends, make enemies, or get completely distracted from what they were doing before this new intervening opportunity came up. So in this campaign, each of the factions offers to help the players in exchange for something. Some of the things that the factions want are just simply for the players to flatter and express common cause with them. But some of them want an ally rescued, information from an undercover spy, or a share of treasure in return for their help. Now, unless the PCs in your particular game already have strong connections with an outside organization that can offer help, it's probably more realistic that they want something for the party in return. So here's a few examples, and you know, this is just our general examples. You would have a better idea of what makes sense for your own game world. So a powerful wizard, for example, may want a rare spell component that's known to be in the area where the party is going. So, in return for that spell component, he or she may loan a powerful magic item and the promise of making that a permanent gift once they receive the desired component that they are sending the PCs to retrieve. If there might be a merchant or manufacturing consortium or guild, they may want the party to investigate rumors of profitable markets or abundant resources that could help them in their enterprise. A lucrative payday could be the promised reward for such information. And a king or noble may want information on the potential threat or defenses of a region where a party is going to adventure. Perhaps a spy or scout will travel with the party to bring that information back. And that spy could be a competent and accomplished adventurer in their own right, and they may just masquerade as a member of the supply caravan so that to most people in the group that's going with the adventurers, it seems like they're just another one of the hired help. But the adventurers may know, oh no, that's actually a pretty powerful ranger, so if the caravan gets attacked, that's yet another person that can help them fight off any problems. As an alternative to that, there might be a scout or a spy with a hidden agenda. The noble or king may want a political rival or enemy eliminated, and the person presented to the party as just a scout may actually be an assassin whose actions could draw the party into the middle of a political dispute between nobles or even between kingdoms. Now, resources, religion, money, and power are all reasons that real world politicians, governments, and organizations get into conflict with each other. So those can all be motivating factors for the rulers and governments and organizations in your game world as well. So when you also add the fantasy influence of meddling gods, demons, dragons, wizards, and other fantastical powers to the mix, there can be lots of different ways that you can maybe sprinkle into your game world some organizations like these factions or a diplomatic envoy from another kingdom or nation that offer the PCs some benefit in exchange for whatever these organizations or powers may want in return. All right, so if you've been watching this far, thank you so much. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and click that post notification bell so you can be notified every time new content goes live. Next time on Lore Friday, we'll look at how you can repurpose and reuse the Mantol-Derith chapter. All right, everybody, I have been DM Galabond. It's good to be back with you on Lore Friday. Hope this has been helpful. Leave me a comment below. Let me know whether you find any of this useful, and we will talk to you next time. Good night, everybody.